Take two. Happy Monday, folks. I hope you're having a blessed start to the week. I don't know what happened, but I have to redo this monologue. The video I just recorded just died. It just disappeared. So anyway, one thing that you got to reconcile with, that you got to think about, is that your objectives as an employee are in direct opposition to the objectives of your employer. Meaning, the example, when you go to the store, you're trying to get the best deal for the least amount of money, right? When prices are too high, you complain, you go somewhere else to try and find the same thing for less money. Your employer is doing the exact same thing. Your employer wants to get the most amount of value, the most amount of productivity for the least amount of money, right? You guys are trying to do the same thing. You want the highest salary you can get for the least amount of work, all right? That's a problem, because your employer is trying to pay you less for more work. You're trying to get more money for less work. Your salary, for all intents and purposes, is just an agreement with your employer to say, I'm going to produce this. You price it at this price, or the market prices it at this price. I'm going to produce this. Your employer says, cool, I'll give you that for giving me this. It's just a contract. It's a transaction. Now, how do you take advantage of that? Well, in the current game, the capitalism game, and we can have different discussions at different time about whether this is a cool game, whether it's sustainable, how we should be living instead, but this is where we're at right now. What you need to reconcile with, or what you need to do with this in mind, is try and see where you can maximize profit or productivity in general for your employer. And that will typically come in one of two ways. It could be both if you're a star, but one of two ways. You either increase the money brought into the company, or you decrease the amount of resources the company uses to produce something. So that could be by way of, you've figured out some leak in the bucket, you've patched the leak, and now the company makes more money so you can command a higher salary. Or you have discovered a resource leak, or you say, hey, the way we're doing this process sucks. Let me fix it, you fix it. And now instead of 5 people in 5 days, it takes 5 people 3 days to do the same thing. Or it takes 3 people 2 days to do the same thing. You have now reduced the resources necessary to produce 1 unit of output. You can command a higher salary. That's just the way it is. I'm sorry. I think we would all appreciate that your salary is in compensation to how much work you do, how hard you do the work. But unfortunately, it's just not. And you could work 20 hours a day, every day for the rest of your life. You're not going to command a higher salary just from pure hard work, because that's also so it's an arbitrary measure. What is hard? For somebody, lifting a box is incredibly difficult. For another guy, it's not. And so how do you commensurate that hardness? I don't know if I used that word correctly, commensurate. How do you reward that difficulty, because it's so subjective? So what you need to do is figure out, what are these things in your enterprise, in your company, for your employer that are meaningful? And again, it's typically going to be one of two things: increasing the amount of profit that the company generates, or reducing their expenses, how much they, their resource expenditure to produce a unit of output. If you can do that, you can command a higher salary, especially because these things are typically, they're numeric in nature, right? So you can say, well, because I did this thing, it resulted in this much growth or this much profit. It's there, no questions, no concerns. Give me the money. Similarly, if you're able to reduce a process, make it easier, more efficient, you can say, before it used to take this long, now it takes this long, this results in this much increase in blah, blah, blah. You do your percentages and everything. Show me the money. That's why AI, with all the conditions and conversations we can have around it, that's why it's lit right now. They're firing everybody for sometimes not even better results. In some cases, the AI will produce better results. In a lot of cases, it might not even improve the results. It might do a slightly worse job than the person in place. But because it is vastly cheaper, that trade-off is valuable to the company, which is unfortunate, but it is what it is, right? This is the thing that you got to keep in mind. And I'm by no means, I'm not a career counselor or, career coach or whatever, right? I'm not going to tell you to go and quit your job. I'm not going to tell you to do some crazy something crazy. I'm just saying that this is the thing that you have to keep in mind in the market, right? The market is saying, hey, I'm going to pay this amount of money for somebody to do this task. That is your salary. It's an agreement. How hard it is for you to do that task is irrelevant. They just want somebody to do it. If one person can do it in 1 hour and you can do it in 20 hours, y'all are still getting the same salary. It's just the person who figured out how to do it in an hour is living a better life because they're doing less work, which they'll ultimately also probably be given more work, which is a tricky thing that you need to deal with because work fills up the time that's allocated for it. So that's why you need to find higher leverage work. And a lot of times the higher leverage work isn't necessarily the more, what can I say, the more menial, it's not the more meaty work, meaty in the sense of it doesn't take the most time. It's not the hard work. It's just the higher leverage work. You know what I mean? You can take the example of you asking these questions. Why do managers and executives get paid so much money, like disproportionate to the amount of work they do? And that's exactly it. It's not because they're doing a lot of work. It's because the one or two things that they are doing are incredibly valuable to the company, right? It either brings the company more money or it allows them to spend less money and still produce the same value. That's why the managers and the executives get paid a ton. Similarly, doctors and whatever, you can ask, why do doctors make why can doctors make such huge amounts of money? And it's because when your life is on the line, bro, you're going to pay whatever it takes to live, right? The doctor is going to say, this is how much it costs. There's no room for bargaining. There's no room for discounts. You pay with the money or you pay with your life. Pick a thing, right? The value, the leverage is so high. Same deal at your job. So what you need to do is think about it from that perspective and say, okay, where is an area in the company, in the enterprise? What is something that I can do for my employer that's either going to increase the profits or reduce the resources necessary? So we're talking about saving time, saving money, reduce the resources necessary to produce the same amount of output we can today. That's where your salary increase is going to come from. And if you can do that, then you can command a higher salary. And if your employer doesn't want to give you a higher salary, that's okay. You now have that thing on your CV. You can jump to the next company, the next business, and then say, this is what I did for my employer. And now you're going to command a higher starting salary. That's just the way it is. Is it cool? Is it not? I don't know. That's not the topic of today's conversation. I just want to, make sure that you guys are aware of that. This is the conversation that you're having. This is the argument that you're fighting with. I know it gets really discouraging and you feel really down in the dumps. You're like, oh, I'm doing all of this work. And then the next guy gets promoted. He doesn't even do that much. Or I'm doing all of this work and the salary I'm receiving doesn't reflect my contributions. It's because your employer, in a lot of ways, sees your contributions as just menial labor. Is just stuff that you're doing that keeps the wheels turning, but it doesn't make them turn faster or it doesn't make the turning more efficient. So if you can find those things in your company that will increase the profits or reduce the resources necessary to produce something, you can command a higher salary. That is the objective if you're playing this game, right? Which is what most people are playing. They're playing this game. Most people are playing this job game. And it's a difficult game to play, but if you can play that game, or this is how you play the game. If you're still playing the game, this is how you play the game, and this is how you bump the numbers up. There's a lot that can be said on this topic. This is already a long video, but I just want to throw that out there for you, chew on it, and then just think about it. I want to see you do well in, whatever way that means, even if it means playing the game, the rigged game, but playing the game so that you can extract the resources. All right, so think about it. Enjoy the rest of the week.